So Dana, let's talk about this, and we will get into a lot of different things throughout this interview. But let's talk about this. Can you tell the viewers a little bit about you and basically why you're running for Congress? I know you ran in 2018, and this is your second time running for the same seat.
Yes. So I ran in 2018 because we had the whole women's movement going on in the Women's March, and I've been a social studies teacher for most of my life, and I've had two amazing social studies teachers when I was in 7th and 8th grade, Mr. Russell and Mr. Villar, who just instilled in us civic duty, instilled in us foreign policy. We watched world news every night, which I continue to do, and I just grew this love and this passion. In 8th grade, we had this 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C., and I just fell in love with the city. And I continued to learn and to study, and I worked abroad internationally in different countries. And my son is autistic. When he was in 6th grade, we wanted him in a very specific middle school. So I came back here for him for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade while my husband stayed abroad overseas working. And when I got here and I started to look at the local politics and get back involved in the Democratic Party, I was not happy with our representation in Daniel Webster. I was not pleased with his voting record, and I also felt that women should represent half of our population because we represent half of the population. So I decided that I can do better, and I put my applications in and worked my butt off and got onto the 2018 ballot through petition, the 2020 ballot on petition. We did improve 4 percentage points, which is statistically an increase from the last 2 congressional elections in our district to the 2018 election, and we are going to win in 2020.
So what did you learn from 2018 that you can use in 2020?
Well, it's interesting because the pandemic has actually opened up markets for audience, because with Zoom meeting and people having to do this, we are able to engage with more audiences. Because running in a big district in an area, it takes me an hour and a half pretty much, because I'm in Hernando County, at the southern area of Hernando County. So to go north, it takes me an hour and a half, hour 45 minutes to get to any event. So, you know, traveling and trying to get to those events, maybe one a day, but not being able to make more. The other day, I was able to get on 2 Zoom calls, boom, boom, and make 2 meetings at the same time. And it was very easy, and more people can come to them. So I'm finding actually greater participation in the messaging, and that people are outreaching for the messaging. So I'm doing Sunday night live chats on my Facebook channel and Instagram, and we've held town hall meetings where we've had lots of people attend, where if I set up a physical town hall, I probably would have gotten half of the people to come, because to get out of the house to find out that it's happening and get there with your active life, it is difficult. So it has been a great experience running in 2020. With the pandemic, we have learned so much more about how to run and how to integrate social media platforms into having people become aware of who is running. That also is all free. Twitter is free, Instagram, Facebook. Thankfully, these are free platforms to message. Of course, we're doing mailings like we did to not MPAs and independents, because it's very difficult to get into sometimes those areas. But this goes back to my messaging on campaign finance reform. It's something too from 2018. I think the Supervisor of Elections Office should put out a slate of candidates with a biography on there of the candidate, and also their voting record or what they stand for and against. And that should go out to every voter, because voters need to be aware of who they're voting for. And it's very important to be an active participant in your democracy.
As a person that was a teacher for 25 years, are you worried about all these situations as far as the pandemic and kids going back to school?
Yes. So I believe that our federal efforts at the beginning of the pandemic were not enough. And that is across both branches, the legislative and the executive branch. Obviously, I believe that President Trump was very flawed in his response to the virus. The country should have shut down. Masks should have been mandated. I believe that leadership starts at the top, and if leadership comes out and said this is a patriotic duty, it would have been a much different message in the issue of wearing masks, social distancing. But also, I believe that the legislative branch should have passed a package, and what that should have been was no money to corporations, no money to businesses. That money should have gone straight to Americans, to individuals, and you would have received it. $2,000 to every American $500 to every child every month for 1 year. And that would have equaled what we've already spent in the 2 packages if we had done it this way. And that way you wouldn't have seen the growth in the portfolios of the richest among us, who have gained over $6 billion, $6 billion in individual growth for the richest 1% since the pandemic in March started. And that has to do with the stock market and the money that went to businesses and corporations that should not have gone there. So that was 2 mistakes in it. Now, if people had to work with that extra money coming in from the government, they could have then provided maybe daycare or individual care to homes in their home for children. And they wouldn't have had to worry about the schools being a service for them to have babysitting services for the kids, because nobody wants their child to be sick and nobody wants to lose their child. And we know that children are going to die. And you want it to be, nobody wants it to be their child. We need to protect them and also the people who are working. And again, it comes back to the poorest among us, those service industry jobs who are considered our essential workers, who are going to suffer at the end of this. You don't see the rich people who can work from home, who can keep their children home or have a nanny at the home, suffering and going through this. It is the poorest among us, those of the middle class, who are going to suffer the worst impacts of this pandemic. And it is not right. So that should have been for 1 year. All debt should have been ceased for 1 year. You should have had no mortgage payments, no credit payments, no loan payments on your cars. All of that should cease and desist. And with $2,000 a month per adult, $500 per child, we would have been able to make it through this pandemic, and we would have been able to close down the country, and we would not be in the place that we are today. And maybe schools could have opened because we would have had this under control. So right now, we have to deal with where are we at right now. I think we can still institute that policy. We can rein it back in. And there's a different way we can provide schooling, because I still believe that our youngest children need one-on-one instruction. I believe that those little ones need to be in the school with teachers. So we could implement a Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday type program, so that way half the children are going. Our middle and high school kids, they can stay home and they can start with virtual learning. They can do that. And my son is in Florida Virtual School. They have clubs that he can join and activities that he can do with his classmates. They can still do those things. So we have those abilities to do that. But the little ones needed to be in the classroom. And we could have, since we closed down the middle and high schools, you can open up all the schools for the elementaries. So that way you can socially distance, you can have small class sizes, they can go 2 days a week, and you can keep a more safe environment. So there were things that we could have done and put in place, but this had to be thought out. We can't be, we're running amok at the last minute trying to put institutions in place and trying to put systems in place. We knew this for months. I don't understand why we weren't better prepared come August for the kids.
My thing is, the Republicans say that everybody is a socialist, but it's funny, but when it's socialism for the corporations, they don't say anything about that. Like you said, these corporations got $4 or $5 trillion. Jeff Bezos is making out like a bandit with Amazon right now. I mean, his wealth is just going up and up and up. But nobody says anything about that. Nobody says anything about all the wars that we start and the money that's going about that. You know, everything else, if you want something for the regular working person, it's a socialist program. It's a joke. And it's really sad that our country has come to that. And you, as a social studies teacher, a lot of these people say socialist, communist, all these words. They don't even know what these words mean. They just regurgitate the stuff they hear on TV. So anyway.
I encourage people to use a dictionary.
I hear you. So Dana,
and it's interesting because we talk about Social Security, Medicare,
right,
and we talk about schooling, we talk about the police and the fire department.
Socialist program.
You would consider these all socialist programs, but what you're saying is there are some operations that are better run as a non-profit entity, that the government has the best interest of the people in mind, where when you look at business or corporate entity, their goal in the bottom line is the profit margin. So do we really want a fire department where their goal is the profit margin? And they think, well, your house isn't worth it for us to come out today, but it is worth it for us to go to that house, because the bottom line on our profit on our water level usage today means your house can burn down. That's what we have to think about, and then that's not what people are, but they're listening to scare tactics. And so when I talk to people and you can reach them and they're going to listen, they hear it differently. And unfortunately, and I will put it right out there, Fox News, it is damaging a lot of American institutions and thought processes, not being able to analyze and provide facts across the board.
So as a congresswoman, how would you help get disabled people all over the country in all different age groups better services?
That is an excellent question, because it is definitely something that we're struggling with when we are more understanding and knowledgeable about how the brain works and how the body functions. And we understand now that the way we used to treat this in the past through institutionalization is not the correct answer. And between the gap of knowing that that is not the answer, but what is the correct route and how do we take care of those people in our society, it's an interesting challenge that I don't think the governments have faced yet. So one of the things that came into, well, of course, was the IDEA legislation, which allowed our children in schools until the age of 21. We also have services and disability, Social Security disability, which provides for the family. But once you turn an adult, you are on your own. And it's one of the heartbreaking things that parents with severely disabled children, when those children become 18, they're still adults. And parents have to actually go to court to become the guardian of their child at that point, and become the custodian of that child and the finances for that child, even though for 18 years of their life, the child could not function independently. So, and they have to spend money on these lawyers and go to the courts to change over this paperwork. And then parents worry about, what do I do as my child ages and I age and I'm not there for my child anymore? Who is going to take care of my child if we pass? And so there is so much on families who have disabled children in their home, and adults, disabled adults in their home who cannot function. So we have to look at what we can do, and there are some homes that are available, group homes that can service and work with people with these needs and make sure that they have the best life that they can live. And the government does need to help step in when parents cannot afford these services for their child. I am for a Medicare for all option, and I believe that Medicare for all should be on a sliding scale, and I don't think we should institute it across the nation. It's an option for your insurance, because I don't think we should just dump the private insurance industry for two reasons. One, if we just dump out the industry without opening up Medicare for all as a public option, is you're going to just flood the unemployment lines, because all of these people who are employed by private industry and private insurance companies all of a sudden now don't have a home, don't have a job, and that would decimate a lot of Americans. So we have to, I think, slide into this slowly. The second thing is, people don't ever want to be told you must do this, right? The ACA taught us that. People fight back. Oh, you can't tell me what I can and can't do. Wearing masks. I mean, you would think that that is a no-brainer, but wearing masks, people fought back and said, you can't tell me I have to wear a mask. So telling people you must be on Medicare, they'll freak, right? So open it as a public option on a sliding scale schedule. And I have never talked to a senior who hasn't loved their Medicare and who hasn't said, oh no, take Medicare for me. No, people can't wait to get on Medicare. So you open it as a public option, and that way health insurance is no longer tied to your employment either. So you could go to different job opportunities. It would be eligible then for people who are what they call gig workers on the gig economy or independent contractors. They would now have an option to join Medicare. I want to see Medicaid gone, roll it all into Medicare, and then again provide the services, and then do a statistical evaluation. So you asked what I can do for Congress. What I need to do is I need to have representatives at every county commission in the 5 counties. I need to have representatives at the school board of the 5 counties, and they have to come back to me and tell me what the needs are. And then what happens is, when the government gives out the budget, the government gives budget to housing and urban development, they give it to Department of Energy, they give it to Department of Education. They don't spend the money. What they then do is say, okay, we're going to develop grants. and we're going to say, here is a grant, and we lose so much, millions, billions of dollars in District 11 because we have no grant writers. So one of the first things I want to do is hire grant writers. So when the budget comes out and these grants come out, we have grant writers to help the counties and the school boards and private industry write these grants so that the money comes to our district to help those in needs. One of the ones I can tell you, there was a $7 million grant to build housing for seniors who could not afford housing. We could have easily used that in any one of our districts, and nobody in our districts wrote a grant for that. And they probably didn't even know it was there or it was eligible for that money. So that's something that I want to do, is an awareness to our districts and help the districts and bring money to our districts from the federal budget through grant writing, because the money is there if you get your applications in. And so we can hire more social workers, we can build more housing, we can do more homes for those in need, we can do maybe different educational programs, and we can also help out those programs already in place. Like we have the ARC here in Hernando County, we have NAMI for mental health in Hernando County. There are so many. We have the Lighthouse for the Blind. They have a great program out in Lake County. So many institutions already in place that we can augment and make more known and provide more funds to help those in our district.
Dana Cottrell here on Fire Breathing Rob. She is running for District 11 for the U.S. Congress here in the state of Florida. With that, you have taught in Germany and also taught in South Korea. Can you speak about that and what you did over there and the experience in general?
Okay, so I'll start in South Korea. I was there first. Definitely a little bit of a culture shock, but it was fascinating. South Korea is like little America. You will find per capita more Outbacks in South Korea than in the United States. So totally like being in the United States, shopping, food, KFC, Starbucks, everything, Dunkin' Donuts, you name it, it's there. I taught on base to American children, but when we were in South Korea, when we have openings at the school, you are eligible to come to the school. If you fill out your application, you pay. At the time for middle and high school, it was $17,000 per student, but we did have a lot of international students and Korean nationals in our school because it gave them the opportunity to learn English, to then stay and take SATs and ACTs, because a lot of international students go to the United States for college. So having that experience was great, and we have a lot of diplomatic kids in our school too, instead of going to the international school, which was pretty much just as expensive, so it evened out. It was a wonderful experience getting to know different cultures, and what I learned being all over the world is everybody has the same goal for their families to be safe, happy, and healthy. It was interesting. My husband worked with the Korean school districts because he was not working at the time for DODEA, and we volunteered in the Korean classrooms. It was a little bit of a different experience. Korean children go to school basically from morning to night. When they leave their education during the day, then they go for tutoring, and then they take classes at night, whether it is in sports, golf, violin, piano, whatever it is, because they are competing then when they get through high school for entrance exams into Korean college, and it's very, very competitive because they don't have to pay, but they have to get into a program with grades. So if you want a specific program, the higher your grades are, you'll get entrance into the program. Germany was very much the same. When I got over to Germany, I was still teaching for the Department of Defense. However, my son went to German school. He went to German kindergarten. He went to German primary school. So it was a lot of rote learning, and it was interesting to see where America has gone away from that rote. Germany was still on that rote, and he was actually taking English, German, and French in first grade in Germany, and they were learning script. So like a week into the school, they dropped print and they went right to script. So it is a bit of a different system, and they go to school in Germany only until 1 o'clock in the afternoon. There is extended school, but it's for us doing your homework or activities after that, but most children go home and they're done at 1 o'clock. Germany also, by 4th grade, they look at your scores and they direct your next level of learning. You're either going apprenticeship route or you're going college route. And they pretty much determine that in 4th grade. College route, you go through, you take academic cores, and you go to college, and it's all paid. There's no cost for college in Germany. And the apprentice route, you go, and by high school, you're only in the morning taking classes, but in the afternoon, you're actually out working in the industry that you're going to have your job in. So it is a very, very different type of experience in Germany. It doesn't mean that if you go apprentice route, you can't go to college, but at that point, if you haven't made the grade or earned the grade, you do have to pay a college fee.
So, you have been all over the world and stuff through all the teaching you've done. With that said, I'm sure you've met a lot of people in Germany, obviously South Korea, a lot of European people. What was their take on the US, the leadership role, and President Trump in general?
It was really interesting going into the 2016 election.
Sure.
When Donald Trump was just putting out there that he was going to run, our German friends, they all thought it was a joke. We kind of thought it was a joke too. And then when he started to gain the momentum, and I really blame the media for this, with the airtime they gave him and publicizing him and his rally, it was all this sensationalist. What's he going to say next? What's he going to do next? And if you do a statistical analysis of his free airtime, it's off the charts for 2016. And he gained this momentum. He got it growing and a following and backing. And as the more he came out with policy statements, my German friends were warning us of their pre-World War II days, their pre-Hitler days, and before they got into fascism and authoritative government. And they could see it coming. They knew it, and they saw it going into 2016. And when he was elected, every one of my German friends said, what did your country just do? Do they have any idea who they just put into office? And so now we're seeing that come to fruition 4 years later, where we have a government out of control. He's backed by William Barr and Mitch McConnell, who have allowed President Trump to do anything he wants or take any liberties with the office he has wanted. He has destroyed our reputation overseas. He has aligned with our enemies overseas, people who we are at odds with how a democracy should work. And it is a real shame that we have somebody who is extremely knowledgeable and smart in the way of being a con man, but is not an educated man, and there are differences there. So again, my German friends just tell me, we hope that you can get it right in 2020 and put Joe Biden into office, because we're looking at people arrested on the streets in unmarked cars by people with no identity on them for no reason. And we look at what's happening in Belarus, it could be the United States right now. And I have been afraid and I've spoken that fear of what will happen to our nation with the Trump presidency. I just pray we get it right in November, because 4 more years of Donald Trump and the people who back him and allow him to get away with whatever he's doing will just decimate our democracy. And I don't know if we can come back after that. What I found is when it happens to you is when it becomes an issue. So people who haven't experienced the negative impact of Donald Trump yet are still supporting Donald Trump. And I hate to draw analogies with history, but I'm a history major. And we look at and we study history so we don't make the same mistakes of the past. And you can look at how a rise of power of a fascist or authoritative leader comes through. At the beginning, everybody backs him because they think there's something in it for them. Oh, this is good for me. And then, other people start getting carted away because the leader has said these people are evil, these people are to blame. And you agree with that because you want to improve your station in life, or you're not confident with who you are. And eventually they come for you and there's nobody left to speak for you. So I've talked to people now who have either lost a loved one with COVID and understand that the problems of that. And you listen to people on the news media also who contracted COVID and got severely ill, who are now voting for Joe Biden. And the convention this week, if you watched, we see lots of people who have given their testimony of why they are voting for Joe Biden, because they've been personally impacted by the negative policies of Donald Trump. And people who are still supporting Trump have not been hit with the negative consequence of his presidency. And I hope they realize before it's too late.
What policies are you going to fight for? What bills would you try to really put your name on and push through immediately?
Well, one of the first bills that I want to push through is a realignment of the power structure in the Congress. And I want to make it so that every 2 bills that the majority party puts through, the minority party can put 1 bill through. And I know that sounds odd with where you started your question, but right now you have so many bills stalled on the desk of Mitch McConnell because he has absolute control and power in the Senate, and he does not allow votes on the bills. So one of the things that we are is we are representatives of the people. And somebody said, well, that wouldn't be good because then you'd get a voting record on me and all these things I might vote for and against. I said, but that's what the people deserve. The people deserve to know where you stand on the issues. So when bills come to the floor, maybe there'll be more clean bills and more one-issue bills instead of putting all these amendments and riders onto things, and we'll get things through the Congress and we'll start to really see change in our nation. You cannot stall out either house of the Congress because you have absolute control by one person on what bills will be brought to the floor. So that is one of the first things that I'd like to initiate with my name on it as starting that as a change to how the House and the Senate operate. That is so important so that all voices of America are heard and represented and we can move bills to the floor. So of course, then I want to have Medicare as a public option. We spoke about that. Environment is extremely important to me, and I totally support Green New Deal, and so I will support all renewable energy policies that Joe Biden will initiate and propose and budget for those policies, along with a jobs bill for renewable energy jobs across our nation and bringing as much back to District 11 as we can to open up new industry and job opportunities for the people of District 11. Healthcare through the public option of Medicare, and reviving education to a whole new way. Now that could take me hours to talk about. That's going to be the topic of my Sunday night live chat this weekend, Sunday night. But we need to fundamentally change the way we're running our education systems in this country, I believe from elementary school through our college systems. And that will take an investment, and it will take a rethinking of the way we present education. I think when the kids get to high school right now, they have no idea why they're there. They don't see the value of what they're learning in their classes to the application to their lives. So I think we need to get them butts out of the seat and get them actively involved in their communities. So they have an interest in journalism or writing, that they go and write and they work at the paper and they see what is this industry like, and they actually are involved and engage their community in that activity. If they want to go into business management, they go to Publix and they shadow the manager and they work there and they understand, oh, these are the elements of business management. This is what I do: scheduling, operating hours, supply and demand, and putting up sales, just throwing a display together. This is all involved in the management. If I'm a manager at Publix or I want to go into business, I want to be a lawyer. So let's go and intern. I want to be a DA. So you go work at the courthouse. We need to get our kids in the community and out of their seats. And then they see, oh, this is how my math applies to me. This is how my English skills come to play. This is why I'm learning social studies and I'm learning about civics. If I want to go into law, I want to be a DA. And I think kids need more choice in their choice of classes in high school. Getting away from this, you take these and you're locked in, allowing kids to say, well, you're going to take social studies, but you're going to choose from these classes and which ones you want to do. That will apply to your life and your skill set and your interest level. We need to just change the way we're doing things. I totally think that we need to get out of institutionalized and generational poverty, are two things that are near and dear to my heart. We need to move people along on the economic spectrum, and how we do that, again, is fundamentally through education at our lowest levels and being involved in the communities of the most need. And there's a school called the Harlem Children's Zone. I don't know if you've heard of it or read about it, but we need to model our inner city schools of that nature, where we're addressing the entire society of the area and helping parents as well as children in those need communities.
How do you expect to win some of these supporters of Trump? Do you even expect to win those people, especially in such a Republican area that you're running in?
Well, what I say to those people is, if they like keeping their Social Security, they should vote for me, not Daniel Webster. If they want to keep their Medicare, they should be voting for me, not Daniel Webster. If they want to see continued growth, they should be voting for me, not Daniel Webster. And so if they want to see for the health of their children and their grandchildren coming up to have a safe environment and clean air and clean water, they should be voting for me, not Daniel Webster. So those are things that I think that people need to look into, not just what is the stock market today, and making that decision based on your individual portfolio. You have to look toward the future. And what I find with people who are just locked into that is they're afraid of immigrants, they are afraid of change, they're afraid of diversity, and they want to remain in their little gated community of the villages and not understand there's a world outside of themselves. And again, when it impacts them personally and their grandchild gets COVID or their child is laid off from their job and they're struggling, I think then they see the personal impact of the Trump policies on them. But until it becomes personal, they have stayed with that route. But again, if they're concerned about their future, they're concerned about their Social Security, their Medicare, keeping their pensions, they should be voting for me.
With that, with that said, Dana, can you tell people how they can help you, where they can find more about you, and what you need in general in this time of coronavirus and in this time of the elections getting pretty close right now?
Yes. So please check us out, like us, and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search Dana Cottrell for Congress or @Dana for Congress, and you will find us on those platforms. We do Sunday night live chats on Instagram and on Facebook at 7 p.m. So join us for those live chats. You can send in questions or topics that you'd like to hear about. We will be hosting several more town hall meetings. We have one already. And if you'd like to have a private Zoom with you and your friends, just let me know. Send me emails. We can set up private meetings. Call me, talk to me. We are there. We are sending out, we'll be on TV, so we do have commercials set to air, and we are sending out mass mailings. So if you'd like to donate to our campaign, you can donate via ActBlue or through the mail, and that is on our webpage, which is dana2020.com. And what we're using all the money now toward is reaching out to NPAs and independents through a mailer with a comparison between myself and Daniel Webster and our voting records, and a little biography on myself of what you will find in the information and what my voting record will be. So we ask you to reach out and follow and like and share posts and just talk to your friends. That's the best way that we get people out, is getting a friend and 3 more to get out and to vote, because your vote is your voice.
Dana Cottrell running again in Florida's House, District 11, and that's for U.S. Congress. So definitely vote for her. Definitely check her out. Definitely help her out, whether it's volunteering or if you can give her a couple of bucks, that would be greatly appreciated. And it's dana2020.com, correct?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
All right, Dana, thanks so much.